They have kids that are actually recruited in schools. They target runaways. They target certain vulnerabilities in the community, at malls, social media. It's just a big, all-inclusive. However, whatever way you can think of to recruit a young girl, it can happen.
The victims are not only smuggled over the border into the U.S., they come from our own communities. Young girls led and trapped into the life.
They target whoever they can. We found that that many of the victims have been recruited from high schools and even earlier age. The profile tends to be girls from all socioeconomic levels that are troubled, that have parents uninvolved in their lives, that may have substance abuse issues.
It can also be any age. According to UNICEF, 1.2 million children are trafficked every year.
A large portion of sex trafficking and human trafficking has to do with underage individuals who are manipulated into this lifestyle, not by their choice. They're held in the lifestyle, not by their choice, and they're really the victim.
But it can happen to anyone at any time.
I, as a person who's been in this industry 20 plus years, have seen women who have been college graduates, got a job, got a house, got kids, got cars, being trafficked. Your neighbor could be a human trafficking victim and you wouldn't even know it.
Taking them out to the ball, buying them clothes, buying them shoes. Some kids maybe have never had a manicure or pedicure, and all of a sudden they get this. They get to go out and eat. They get to stay in cheap hotels, and all of that is exciting for a teenage kid.
Other victims lured by what they lack in their lives, from material items to emotional needs. It fills a psychological void in their lives.
Basically, they're grooming them in this process. And then some of these girls are looking for that type of affection, or they fall for it.
You're always getting asked, gosh, you know, you guys are so pretty, you'd make so much more money. And there's just the flattery. I think you don't pick up on the flattery and how dangerous.
But in the beginning with that grooming process, what they're trying to do with them is they're trying to tell them, hey, look, you know, I'm the only one that cares for you. I'm the one that's going to always be there for you.
It's a pattern of psychological manipulation. Then abuse.
When they do, these guys take advantage of that. They play on their feelings, they play on their weaknesses, and then once they get them into the fold, then things turn. They do a 180 degrees on them, and then that's when the abuse starts. That's when the verbal abuse, the physical abuse starts.
All this sets the girls up and puts them in a situation where they cannot and do not know how to get out.
The victims of sex trafficking, these young girls in particular, have been manipulated, brainwashed, if you will. They're fearful for their lives. They're fearful for their family and others who may have they've been told would be hurt if they try to get out.
That's where it snowballs into just prostitution acts all day, every day, with no sort of recourse in being able to get out of it.
For 4 years, even though I walked away from the club, I was still alone. I had no idea. Up until that point, I'd never identified as a victim of human trafficking or a survivor of human trafficking. I had no idea. I just thought my life had been pretty messed up and bad things happened. I knew I was involved in the sex industry, but not as a victim.
Even if they try to get out, for many, they feel there is nowhere to turn.
Law enforcement had never been trained on how to even identify human trafficking, let alone how to properly serve victims. State's Attorney's Office, social services, domestic violence shelters, child protective services, local schools, hospitals, nobody knew about the issue of human trafficking. It broke my heart. It really broke my heart.
We need these victims at some point to come forth and talk about how it is they got involved and who it is that got them involved and brought them here. That is the kind of thing you need so that eventually you can make a criminal case out of it.
The victims also continue to get victimized by the system.
We need to change our state law to make it clear that if you are a prostitute or you are someone who is involved in the sex trade from that end, you are a victim, not a criminal.
The real criminals are harder to catch.
The challenges that we do face is that, like in any criminal activity, your criminals are always trying to refine their techniques, refine their means of committing their crime. They're trying to do it better.
What is helping to keep the traffickers ahead of law enforcement is the internet.
Social media and pimping and pandering and human trafficking is skyrocketing. We have found it through many social media outlets.
Times have changed, the technology's changed, there's much more money involved. Internationally, this is about a $32 billion a year criminal industry. Criminals have become very sophisticated and they run anymore under the radar. They're not as obvious as having so-called streetwalkers. They use the internet in certain internet pages, if you will, Backpage.com, Craigslist, and others, to advertise their wares. They're also very transient. They've learned that if they can pick up and move and go to another community and also rotate the girls that they're trafficking, that there's less opportunity for them to be noticed.
The pimps can hide in plain sight.
It was so blatant and so in your face, and the pimps are just out without any regard for the community or for law enforcement or authority. Got here and was absolutely floored at the amount of blatant pimp-controlled prostitution present.
A pimp could be in school, going to college, and then working as girls at night. That's just the reality of it.
Part of the problem with human trafficking is not just the pimps, but the Johns as well.
Prostitution is something that is a crime with a perpetrator, the sex buyer, and the pimp and the trafficker, and a victim who's the person who's being sold for sex.
We've trained in internet crimes against children cases, and I have tasked some of our individuals to work on stings to determine or to go out and do stings and arrest people who are out seeking prostitutes who wanted to engage in what is in North Dakota illegal activity. When we have done that, we have seen there's no shortage of clientele, and there is no shortage of calls that come in to our agents who arrange to meet them in a hotel. We did a sting in Dickinson, North Dakota, and Williston, and between the two cities arrested 14 individuals who were out looking, most of them for very young teenage girls.
We will continue to prosecute the Johns as well. As long as there's a market for this crime, there will continue to be sex traffickers and victims of human trafficking.
When we come back, if you are not convinced human trafficking exists in Montana, we'll take you to an undisclosed location where one couple helps victims of human trafficking when a battle against modern-day slavery returns.